Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey.
Are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to get cool.
That's a nickname in its own way, but we came up with a new couple of words for corn.
Oh, yeah. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Up, 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 don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up.
Can you quickly tell everybody what a rug pull is?
Bitcoin stands for freedom, sovereignty, and independence from government, coercion, and control.
I think now we're good. Are we good now? Hello. Testing. Are we good? No bueno. All right, maybe you guys can hear me now. All right. Quality's bad, but I can hear you. There you go. We're good now. We're good. Sorry, guys. I don't know what the hell is going on with this stupid thing. Try to increase the volume. Now I cannot hear you. Is it working now? It's scratchy, but it's working. Guys, I'm waiting to see if this is working. All right. I think it's working now. So I think we're live. All right. Okay. Back to what I was trying to say earlier, which was where to begin this saga tonight in this crazy world we live in. But we're gonna give it up to the gold bugs. Okay. So congrats to all you Luddite boomers with your Bibles sitting in your cave. Miraculously, your coin went up. Okay. So congratulations, right? You guys held on for an absolutely long time. And it's quite incredible that even though you knew the markets were faking gay, and even though you knew the price was being suppressed through paper markets because nobody can tell how much gold there is, if the gold is real, if there's a Fort Knox audit, you guys still held on. Like that's a belief system that is gonna be, commended. I commend you retards for holding on to the dear bitter end. But the funny part about this too is that, like, what are you celebrating exactly, right? Because you were finally proven right in the fiat number up. But is that a good thing for you and for everybody else? When you look at how much gold central banks actually hold, right? They hold the majority of it. They hold like 70 to 80% of all the gold on the planet, right? They own the mining facilities. They own the entire apparatus. Okay. So the gold pump actually pumped the bags of central bankers. Okay. It's kind of faith back into the system, right? Like the trust me, bro. Like, hey, the bankers, we use gold as our treasury reserve asset. Of course we were right about this, rise going up. And in reality, right, it's to take the narrative away from Bitcoin. But Bitcoin's fine. Like we're not worried about Bitcoin. We're just talking about what's happening right now. And so the gold bugs are euphoric in this moment, right? But the rug is here, right? Here's the thing. The more metals pump, the more paper metals will be issued. The more inevitable paper metals will rug, the more likely people are to recognize the value of self-custody, permissionless transfer. Yeah, that's a thing. And that's the thing I was thinking about, actually. Like cool, like the gold price went up, right? Like you guys are cool. Mic is still scratchy. I don't know what's going on with the mic, guys. I apologize. Probably like practice with this thing beforehand and not done it like live. So anyways, we're going to have to just roll with it because I don't think I can switch it out, to be honest. Yeah. Sorry, guys. We're going to have to roll with it. I'll try to switch it during a commercial. But anyways, what was I talking about? I was talking about the ability to say no. Like, you've been born into a system, right? You don't have any choice over, right? You were born into this system of oppression and bondage. And you've really never had an opportunity to say no. If you think about it, like you haven't been able to say no, I no longer consent, right? And the power of no is actually like a very powerful thing. And we don't realize that power because we've been always to be be, meant to just get along, man. Why you gotta, shuffle some feathers, G? Why you gotta rock the boat? Everything's cool, man. Don't say no. Just give us some time. We'll work it out. We'll smooth it out. Just chill out. But no, right? No. Funny enough, I was at a bar this weekend and I met some people, and we ended up having drinks actually just a little bit before this. And I didn't tell them anything about what I did. Told them nothing. I told them nothing or whatever. And the conversation finally got to they were talking about, we want to really stop paying taxes. They said that, and out of the blue, I did not prompt any of this, you guys. Literally did not prompt any of this. And it was kind of funny because I was like, well, that's kind of what I'm into. Not filing, not paying taxes. And so the power to say no. You've never had a option to say no, right? You had to go to school, right? You had to do this. You had to get a driver's license. You had to get a bank account. There's not much wiggle room there. You can't just live on, out in the forest with rocks and stuff, right? You're real people. And so you've never had the power to tell somebody, no, I don't consent. You really haven't. And finally, right, there's this technology out there that's been around, that's unconfiscatable, immutable, permissionless, can't be censored, can't be taken from anybody, by any military, by any government, by any banker. And you can just tell people no for once. And that's such a beautiful thing, that you have the opportunity now to just say no, right? And I think people don't realize that power because they, whether it's a domestication thing or, whatever it is, they don't want to say no. And we're getting to a point now where some people are going to have to start saying no, right? It's happening more and more, right? You've got normies like Nick Adams. Paying taxes should be paused until the federal government can prove there is no fraud. Paused? Right? This is dipping your toe into the tax revolt. We should this is in a LinkedIn meeting, right? This is a corporate LinkedIn meeting, right? With a bunch of corporate cucks in their suits and ties, thinking about how can we, let's, some brainiac and in this committee, we shouldn't go full crazy. We should just pause, right? Until they get their act together and they have enough time. No, we're not pausing. We're just stopping. And it's kind of funny because that's the normie version of your tax revolt. Anyways, where was I going with this? Oh, and so I actually kind of like this new narrative though of gold mooning, because in a sense, triggering the gold bugs is so freaking fun. Because here you have a bunch of angry boomers, let's be honest, everybody hoarding gold is over 60, right? There's not 20 and 30-year-olds hoarding gold. Sorry, they just aren't doing it. So all these guys Praying Medic and Pepe Deluxe, all the retards, right? The Q-tards, as we call them, have been hoarding gold. They're yeah, we made it. We got it. You Bitcoin guys, we knew we were right, And it's just funny, right? Because they're arguing about internet money on the internet, right? Where we're tipping each other in sats on the internet. We're doing all these cool things with Bitcoin, with permissionless systems. We're making NFTs. We're making proof of publication. And the gold guys yeah, we got you. And the fact of the matter is gold isn't even scarce. Elon said we could pull unlimited amounts of gold out of the ocean. We can actually mine gold on asteroids in the moon. And I love this clip of Quast from just this Wednesday with Burning Bright. Have a listen.
So think about this. Now, if you can go up into space with Elon Musk's rocket, and now you can refuel, you can bring resources back to the Earth affordably. And now we have the mining robotics to be able to take a robotic miner to the moon or to an asteroid and mine the gold, the silver, the platinum, all of the quote unquote rare earth metals, and bring them back to any point on Earth, or 3D print something in space, as large as you want, as small as you want.
Quote unquote rare earth metals, right? Which is kind of funny because Gold isn't scarce. Silver is not scarce. Okay. Now that's what we've used, right? That's what they've used over the time. That we haven't had a better option until 17 years ago, right? So that's what's been there. But the markets have always been suppressed, right? The markets have always been spoofed. They've been rug pulled. And it was basically to hide inflation. Like the bankers didn't want people to know that not only did they control the inflation rate, but they controlled the output of gold. And really, like, you know, when you raise the price of gold, like there's no difficulty adjustment. You can just pull more gold out of the ground when the price gets high enough. That's what the problem is that it wasn't just cost effective before. Now it's probably going to be cost effective. So what's going to happen is the supply demand is going to feed the need for silver, for gold, for all of the metalheads, for all the industrial use cases. And it's, you know, it'll probably pop, right? It'll probably go back down because those use cases will be filled because the price went up, supply will come into the market, it'll knock the price back down, right? That's just typical how supply demand works with something that is not scarce. Okay. And that's just the fact of life. But again, the point here though, is really about what the option for an individual to say no is. You don't have that option with gold and silver. They just kill you. They take your stuff. Okay. Not only that, right? But you can't transport gold over space and time. It just doesn't work. And so, by the way, we're not, this is like a cope thing. This is actually kind of funny. It's an educational thing for the gold bugs out there that are still having a hard time with this, because even the ETF guys, like if you're buying ETFs and you're buying derivatives of Bitcoin, like you're not in the war. You're not really in the war. The only way you join this battlefield is when you self-custody Bitcoin and you take it out of the hands of trusted third parties. Because all these people out there, the bankers, the politicians, right, the institutions, they want that trust back. They realize after COVID and after all this stuff, the pendulum has swung so far, trust back. Your financial advisor wants some of that trust me bro back, okay? But at the same time, right, Bitcoin and AI is dematerializing all of the rent seekers out there so that the value they provide, right, like goes to zero. You don't need a financial advisor when Grok is producing like, I think 5x what the S&P 500 does or whatever, right? Like you have now AI trading bots that will do better than a financial advisor for free. But you don't need a financial advisor. You don't need an insurance guy. You don't need a tax guy. Like everything will be done through AI. And so these other like quote unquote service jobs, right? Which is nothing, just moving paper around and guessing at stuff, but gambling in essence. They provided no value. They only provided value because it was to prop up a fake financial system. That's the only value served. And so now, you know, mic gain is too high. All right, I'm going to turn it down. Maybe that's the problem. Is that better? All right. Thanks, guys, for the feedback. Again, I'm messing with this stuff. And so yeah, like, you know, what is this fight about? You know, and then you've got them people promoting midterms and all this other crazy stuff, right? But like, what makes sex not rape? Well, that would be consent. What makes a job not slavery? That would also be consent. What makes a transaction not a robbery? That would be consent. What makes taxation not theft? Magical fairy dust. And so, yeah, it's just kind of funny. We're here. We're in here with the metalheads, with Peter Schiff's, right? The gold bug doomers, your uncle who's in a cave with his, you know, his MREs and his lead and his guns, right? For this civil war that's never happening, right? Because the people that are celebrating this are expecting like a meteor to come down and just basically wipe out all technology, right? That's what they're hoping for. They're hoping to go back to this Mad Max style of living, right? Which is just like, that's the battle. They would want nothing more than to go back to that because their other system is failing. And so, you know, like, what's your purpose here? What are you doing here? What fight are you in? But this is an epic psyop from the central bankers to regain that trust from you, okay? And look, guys, it's a comfy position. Gold went back up. some people are just gonna gravitate towards, you know what, like, I don't like holding my own wealth. Gold seems to be good now. You know what, this Bitcoin stuff was just too volatile. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna sell some of my Bitcoin and put it into gold and just go back to my 80 portfolio. And the banks are okay. Like, everything's calm until they're not. Look what happened in Iran. Look what happened in Zimbabwe. Look what happened in Venezuela. Okay. And Americans are just like ignorant to the fact that they don't think that can happen here. And there's a lot of arrogance going around. I think it's kind of like on purpose. Like, I think like patriots or whatever are actually providing this kind of like calmness in the markets to a degree that make everything seem okay when I don't really think it really is. Right. And, it's an interesting place to be in. One other thing I wanted to point out, which I think was funny, was the protester that, everyone's talking about, so I'm just going to bring it up, right? So here's this guy. Here's Peter. I want to talk about Peter McCormick real quick because this is a funny clip. Okay, so here we go.
So a wall around my house is a passive power projection, and I put up a wall. I still don't understand how that's a passive projection of power. Why would someone walk up to my house and punch the wall?
Right. So this is Peter McCormick talking to Jason Laurie, and he's trying to understand like what a passive power projection method is. And so he's like, why would someone walk up to my house and punch a wall? Like, that would obviously hurt their hands. Right. And then you have this freaking idiot.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Preddy interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him. Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose face...
So here you have a rabid dog kicking like the side of a car, which is, a power projection, right? Piece of equipment on the vehicle, right? Like, it's made out of steel and aluminum, whatever it's made out of, for a reason, in case it gets hit. So it doesn't really kick the light off, whatever. But it's funny because Peter's like, why would somebody walk up and punch my wall? Well, why would somebody walk up and kick a car? Right? Like, you have no, it's just a kind of a funny, like, illustration of how stupid people are in like trying to fight whatever they think they're fighting. And, like, that guy got put down for good reason. He was a rabid dog that was deranged from leftist ideology that could not handle what was happening. I will say this about the MAGA people, though, because some of the MAGA people are like, you know what? He was illegally carrying a gun. He didn't have a permit, and he didn't have the piece of paper that gave him the authority. I'm like, you know what? You're a fucking idiot. First of all, I'm not shedding any tears for this guy. He deserved to be put down. Okay, so I'm not disputing that. What I am saying, though, is that if some of you conservatives say he deserved to be put down because they didn't have a fucking piece of paper on a permit, right? And Trump's like, I didn't like that he had a gun, right? It's kind of like, it's comical because you guys don't get it either. Like, that's not it. I don't need a piece of paper to carry a gun around, right? Who says that, right? Now, that may be what the propagandists have told you that, but look, if you're going to do it, you should get your training, right? You should understand what concealed carry is, meaning nobody knows you have it. And at the end of the day, like, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And so think about that you don't need a piece of paper to lawfully protect yourself, right? Self-defense is a God-given right that no politician can take from you. And yeah, so anyways, I'm just going to say that because I thought it was kind of comical. One, like the guy kicking a car, like that was kind of funny. Like, oh, you kicked the nice vehicle, like tough guy. And then two, like the conservative bros are like, he didn't have a permit. He didn't have a piece of paper, Anyways, I like to call the hypocrisy out on both sides, but I'm probably rambling a little bit too much now. That's just what I wanted to say. And so let's get into some of the ads. Of course, there's no audio here. I don't know why. Manly cans. I'm not sure. These are manly cans, but there's no actual, it just says it's a produced ad. So badlandsmedia.tv/manly cans. I did not have a script to read from, So these things look pretty cool. I guess there's different like treats in there for men. Go get a manly can. They look pretty awesome. badlandsmedia.tv/manly cans. Free shipping with $50 and over. Go ahead and scan that code. And I think we've had these guys on before. So props to Manly Cans. Thank you for sponsoring the show. And we will go to the next one.
This slightly. This lotion changes people.
My knuckles would actually start to crack. Started using the soft disclosure lotion, and I am very impressed. Even within just a few days, I've noticed a tremendous difference.
That's not a script. That's what happens when something actually works.
It puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Yeah, that line keeps coming up because when you don't use it, your skin starts acting up.
Every single ingredient in soft disclosure is intentionally chosen. There's no filler ingredients. It is not like this BS product where you know they have a bunch of ingredients. Every ingredient listed is for a purpose.
Over 65-star reviews for the lotion alone. Not influencers, not actors, just people whose skin finally shut up. Soft disclosure lotion. Once you try it, you'll understand why people won't stop talking about it. Visit softdisclosure.com and use code Badlands and get 10% off.
And then, of course, we have River. Stack Sats with River, the Bitcoin-only platform built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Why River? Zero fee reoccurring buys. Stack Bitcoin effortlessly, hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly. 3.5% Bitcoin interest on cash. FDIC insured. No minimums. Withdraw anytime. Expert US-based support. Human help plus private client services for big buys. Think like 100K plus. Business accounts. Boost your balance sheet with Bitcoin and earn 3.5% paid in Bitcoin. Top-tier wallet support, send, receive, and manage Bitcoin securely, including Bitcoin Lightning, unmatched security, full reserve custody, multi-sig cold storage, and proof of reserves. Join the Bitcoin revolution today at badlandsmedia.tv/river and earn real returns. That's badlandsmedia.tv/river. Go ahead and grab that app. Go ahead and grab the update. Some great new features in there. And so I bought coffee in El Salvador using Bitcoin Lightning. So let's go ahead and keep it rolling. Sorry about the audio, guys. I am using a new little dilly bob. I think I have some things on here too. Let's see if you guys can hear this.
All the bitches love me. I got my baby cash. All the bitches love me.
I got my Pepe Cash. Oh. Is that coming through? Is that working? Or what about this one?
We have almost no inflation.
Trump says there's almost no inflation.
We have almost no inflation.
I mean, he's right. There's no inflation for Bitcoiners.
GMoney is right.
And Quas is right.
GMoney is right.
You heard Quas say it, right? But, there's a problem out there because...
But the people are retarded.
Yeah, so playing around with the soundboard a little bit. So sorry for the audio difficulties. And then what else was we going to get? I think that's it. I think we're ready for our interview. This is pre-recorded, by the way, guys. Sorry, Eric is on the East Coast. We pre-recorded it just the other day. But if you guys are not following him, go check him out, Eric V. Stacks. Great dude. And then, of course, he's part of What Is Money show. He's part of the Breedlove show, right? He's the co-host for What Is Money. We've had Breedlove on here before. But without further ado, let's go ahead and play this. And I will be in the chats. All right. Shade Alay. All right, we are live. Welcome, Mr. Eric V. Stacks to Rugpull Radio. Pleasure to have you, sir.
And, GMoney.
Welcome.
Pleasure to be here, man. I've heard good things about you. Saw your episode on the Win podcast a while back. Yeah, so I'm excited, man. I'm hopeful for a good 2026. I can feel it, man. It's going to be a good year.
It's coming, man. It's coming. Breedlove and the What Is Money show has been a big part of, my orange pilling process. So props to you for coming on. And Robert is doing well, but wanted to have you on. I think we met briefly at the Las Vegas conference last year.
Yep.
And you've got such a cool story. that I think needs to be heard, because, you know, I think a lot of people count what you guys do in the cannabis industry as like kind of a revolution. Like, you guys really, I don't think, get enough credit for the bullshit, you know, the game, you know, the threats. And you guys really are, I think, a big part of this awakening that we're going through right now. And so, yeah, why don't you give us like your backstory, kind of, you know, give us a 40,000-foot view of how you kind of found Bitcoin and your entrance from the cannabis industry, because it's a super interesting story.
Yeah, cool. You know, I haven't talked about this in a while, so it's kind of refreshing to circle back a little bit. So the long and short of it is, my parents divorced when I was 5 years old. My mother remarried, and she married to a psychiatrist, had a lot of money, and just absolutely decimated my father in divorce court for many, many years. Took him like 20 years to recover from it all, but he prevailed. He's doing really well now. But my mom, she was depressed, you know, contending with some of the challenges in the world, and she got into pharmaceuticals. And I was kind of an angry, frustrated teenager. I had started to question the system and the world that we lived in our society at a young age. And my parents wanted me to get on antidepressants, and I was very adverse to that. At least my mother and my psychiatrist stepfather. And I was very adverse to that. I never did. But by the time I was like 16, maybe 15 and a half, 16 years old, I was hanging out with some friends. Somebody had a doobie, and they're like, hey, you should try this weed. And I was pretty straight edge. I was pretty adverse to the idea of it. A couple of weeks later, same group of friends smoking weed. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to smoke this weed. And I did. And I was like, wow, wait a second. Why is it you can get all fucked up on alcohol? You can buy Marlboros, tobacco, you can get all these crazy pharmaceuticals, but this plant is illegal. So I developed an affinity for cannabis in my mid to late teens, and I had some odd jobs, worked as a salesman for a couple of years at a Toyota store. A friend of mine that I went to high school with moved to Humboldt County and went to HSU and started dating a grower. And she contacted me because she knew I loved weed. And she's like, hey, there's a work opportunity if you want to come up and trim a harvest. You know, this was like, this was September of 2009. And I was all over it. I packed up everything I had, put it all into a storage unit, took my shitty car at the time, drove to Northern California. And it was interesting. When I got to the Redwood Forest, it like hit me. I was like, this is definitely where I'm going to live. I'm going to live here, and I'm going to contribute to liberating this plant from prohibition. So I did. I worked for a guy for 2 years, saved up some money, started a 501c3 nonprofit so that I could be compliant with the medical marijuana regulations and rules at the time, rented a house, scraped together every penny I could, built out like a nice grow room in my garage, and started growing weed. Selling it to dispensaries in Southern California, all lawfully, paying taxes. And then in 2015, the governor, Jerry Brown, signed into effect MERS, which is the Medical Marijuana Safety Regulations Act. And that was going to basically put into effect the regulatory framework for adult use. So the counties were going to permit the use if they were going to allow cannabis activity. And then the state would ultimately license those permitted entities. So you could say I was in the right place at the right time. I had a 50-50 deal with some old couple out in the hills, and I was negotiating terms because this was, as the regulations went into effect, there was going to be an immense amount of landhold improvements that were required to get this property up to compliance. And the guy was stonewalling me for like a year and a half. So last minute, I once again scraped together every penny I could, borrowed some cash from friends, and threw a Hail Mary. Bought a property, got into escrow, closed escrow on the property, got my application into the county literally the day of the deadline. Ended up getting it permitted in 6 months, which was like record time. So I was one of the first people in the county to get a permit. Got licensed in the beginning of January 2018, right at the beginning of when the state issued their first wave of licenses. And there I am in January of 2018 holding this license. And a month before that is when a friend of mine brought up Bitcoin to me. And of course, I had heard about Bitcoin, but I hadn't really put any thought into it. And let's see. So right after I closed escrow on the property, I started to go down the economic rabbit hole, watch a bunch of YouTube videos, became kind of a hard money guy. So I was pretty well primed after like 9-12 months of thinking really deeply about the economy, the Federal Reserve, what caused the boom bust cycles. And as a commodity producer, watching the value of the product that I produce kind of yo-yo around, dude, the Bitcoin thing blew my mind and I got it immediately. Watched a couple of documentaries, went down the YouTube rabbit hole, and this was December of 2017. So a month later, when I got this license in my hand from the state of California, which was a very vindicating moment for me in my life. A lot of my teachers and parents, friends, and whatever had issues with me and my affinity for cannabis. And that was kind of like a fuck you moment. Like, here I am. I got this state license for my legitimate business. I founded and funded and have my corporation, and I'm licensed. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, I was so conflicted. I'm like, this is not going to end well. The taxes, the regulation, the whole thing, this is not going to be good. And what made Humboldt County such a fantastic place to grow weed when it was illegal, or you could say gray market, under the Proposition 215 medical marijuana laws? I had a suspicion that those things that made it good to grow weed when it was illegal were going to be the very things that made it terrible as it was legal. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's far from the market. There's a whole litany of reasons. And then I'm watching the supply go through the roof. As the demand goes up, the supply can very quickly follow, because it's really easy to build out a facility or plant a field or whatever. So you can satiate that demand with supply very easily. So I decided within like a couple of weeks of getting my license that I was going to sell the property. I was going to put as much of it as I could into Bitcoin and then pivot my business strategy to farm consulting and management services. So I had all the upside of being in the cannabis business, but none of the downside. The value of your business or the property that the business is on is directly contingent upon the value of the commodity. And so, I ended up being right. I watched the value of the product decrease significantly over those next few years from like 2018 to by 2021 is when it really got tough. And I watched just 95%, I would say, of the farmers in Humboldt County start to go out of business.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. Like as an example, in 2015, a premier bulk wholesale pound of cannabis was worth like $3,000. Fast forward the clock to 2021, 2023, even now, like your best pound is $1,000. But in that time frame, your operating costs have doubled, if not tripled. So I was getting squeezed, man. It's like, if your cost of living goes up 10% and your wages go up 5%, that's real wage deflation. But I was watching my wages go down while my cost of living was going up. So, I took on a Bitcoin position, started doing some consulting services, basically running other people's licensed farms, and started plowing into Bitcoin. And I'm obviously happy I did that. That was the right decision.
Yeah, awesome. Lot to unpack there. So it sounds like your business or the idea of the cannabis industry was a negative around maybe friends and family of yours until like it was quote unquote legal. And it's funny how the propaganda works in people's heads, right? It's like, oh, the government says it's bad, which means that must mean you're a bad person, right? Like, and we all had that stigma back in the day when I was in high school, right? It was like, oh, it's bad, but it's like, it's just a plant, bro. When you break it down into the basics, you're like, man, we live in this upside down world of information where a natural growing plant is illegal, but here they'll give you this medication that literally forces people to commit suicide, right? Like it literally says in the warnings, you may commit suicide on this medication.
Dude, I remember being a kid watching commercials with my family. We're watching Seinfeld or The Simpsons or whatever. And it's like, oh, do you wake up in the morning tired? Do you get like upset? Like you need this, I don't know, Zyprexa or whatever. And then here's the end of it. Could cause suicide, bleeding, all the crazy shit. Like, what the fuck, man? And that caught my attention as a young child. Like, I don't know about all this stuff. There's a place for it, but I think we're abusing it for profit.
Yeah, no, 100%. I had a similar experience with psilocybin, right? During, the Vegas concert. I was there at the shooting and had really bad anxiety myself. And so psilocybin, worked as a natural, antidepressant slash, kind of medication that's natural, right? To a degree. And I think there's a lot of just hidden benefits to all these things that the government has kept us at bay. But, now that they're legalizing this stuff, it almost like just gives the green light to big business, right? It's kind of like, hey, we're going to make all these new rules for you guys. And at the end of the day, the only ones that can compete are the big business, right? Because it pushes all the small guys out, in your example there, where you guys were thriving until it was legalized for a few, right? Permissioned if you pay a fee, right? Legal if you pay a fee. And so we live in this permissioned, licensed world of bullshit. And Bitcoin just breaks all those barriers, which is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. I found it to be quite frustrating at times. I'm like, wait a second. So the government removed our right to cultivate a plant. Now we're on the other side of this prohibition, jurisdictionally dependent, and then they're going to sell you that right back and then tax the shit out of you. And so I remember being like, oh my God, I got this license from the state, but like, I don't even need this fucking license, man. Dude, it was just, it was an interesting experience. I learned a lot about life. I learned a lot about the political process, on a county and state level, the development of regulations, incentives, business, corporate structure. Like, it was definitely worth doing, but it was like, kind of like being stuck on a roller coaster. Another analogy I use was like playing blackjack. I was pretty good. I was good at what I did. In some sense, you could say I could count the cards, but I was stuck at the table. I kept winning hands, and it was like all in. Attorneys, engineers, biologists, land studies, constant shit from the county. It's interesting too. I sold the property. 3 or 4 years later, the new property owner gives me a call, and he's like, "Hey, seen your email?" And I'm like, "No, let me check it out." He forwards me a bill from the county where the county had retroactively gone back for every hour that they used to approve my permit and tried to charge us $100 an hour for it. And I'm like, "Hey man, that's your bill. That's why I sold this place." It's a tough deal. And then as far as federal legalization, I do know a lot of people still hanging on in the business, hoping that federal legalization creates some sort of uptick in demand, gives them the opportunity to either export their product out of state or sell their business. But I do think that when that time comes, and I think it's likely, the government needs another business or industry to exploit and tax. I think the unfortunate thing is when that happens, these entities that are going to, take over the industry or come in and start producing, they're going to sell equity on Wall Street. They're going to use that capital to run their business at a loss, drive the value of the commodity down further, and then buy these businesses up if they want them for pennies on the dollar. So this is a classic case of fiat subsidized scumminess and consolidation and monopolization, I think, is what we're going to be seeing in the cannabis business. But now on the flip side of that, the product is clean and it's good. And one of the benefits, I think I could say the only benefit I can think of, which I do believe the free market would have worked this out itself, is the testing standards have prevented cultivators from using pesticides and fungicides that they did historically. So if you walk into a state licensed dispensary in Oklahoma, Nevada, California, Colorado, any jurisdiction where the state is involved, the testing requirements are very stringent. It's probably one of the cleanest products you can purchase as far as toxic pesticides goes.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. So did you never really muddled with like the peer-to-peer elements of Bitcoin, knowing that, being in the cannabis industry in the gray area, like, your bank accounts could get seized. You're always kind of under threat in that where, some entity could just kind of take your stuff. Did you guys ever use Bitcoin from a peer-to-peer standpoint for some of your customers and stuff, or?
No, I would have loved to. I had a couple distributors that I worked with. The licensing model was very overbearing. You had to produce with a cultivation license, give it to a licensed distributor, and then the licensed distributor would give it to a licensed retailer. And a lot of these businesses, what would happen is the cultivators would produce the product, they'd spend capital, they'd, it's a crop or season or whatever, they'd produce the product, they'd give it to a distributor on front, and then they would front it to a retailer. And then the odds that you got paid were not very high. I saw endless people end up producing product and not get paid by their distributors because the retailers wouldn't pay the distributors. The retailers can go out of business. You could have somebody operating in a dispensary and they'll go out of business. They move, and then a new LLC and a new group of individuals will pop up in the same location. So there's a lot of scumminess in the business. Yeah, so I never sold any product for Bitcoin, but I definitely ran around from like 2018 up until I left Humboldt County in May of last year, just fucking going on and on all day, every day about Bitcoin. Like, gosh, you guys need a treasury strategy. Like, you got to have a solid treasury strategy. This is likely to not end well, Yeah, so I was shocked by how few cultivators, how few people in the cannabis business were into Bitcoin. I've seen a little bit more over the last 2 years or so, a couple people that I know socially on Instagram and whatnot that grow in other states that are like posting stuff about Bitcoin. But yeah, I would have definitely loved if there was more of a peer-to-peer element. With Bitcoin, everything was cash, Yeah. I used to bury Pelican cases of cash and gold and silver and shit on my land. Dude, when I got rid of all my gold, all my silver, and I didn't have any cash anymore, and I had my Bitcoin behind a distributed multi-sig, like conceptually, I knew how powerful that was. I can't even put into words the feeling, dude, because I had to hide my capital from fires, from burglars, from seizure. There's this like guilty till proven innocent dynamic when you get caught in the cannabis business. I had random inspections. I used to say the fucking Gestapo is fucking here, dude. Jesus, like state of California would come in. Hey, we're here to inspect your farm. I'm like, all right, cool. Fucking come inspect, dude. I got stickers on everything. Your barcodes, your overpriced barcodes are on all my fucking product. Go check it out, dude. It was a nightmare in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened though? Like I remember in high school, like the weed used to be kind of like pretty, like, not as potent. Now it's just like, man, it's gotten so crazy potent that, it's not even, I don't know, fun anymore. It just makes you kind of.
Yes.
So what's your recommendation for new people getting into cannabis?
I would say that's a really good question. I would say if you're going to get any cannabis at a dispensary and you don't want to get your socks completely blown off, don't purchase the highest THC product. I think what's happened is the retailers really started to dictate what the cultivators grew. And I have a lot of friends that were breeding for many, many years that had these really beautiful, unique strains that had special terpene profiles. Some of them were like medium in THC, high in CBD. And the retailers, they really wanted all of this blingy, high THC product that the rappers would rap about. And I think that there's a multitude of reasons for that. Part of it is economical. If somebody's going into a dispensary and they're going to buy a $60 eighth, they're thinking, well, if I can get this stuff that's 33% THC, that's better than one that's at 20. But the psychoactive effects with high THC cannabis are going to be much different than if you get something that's got, CBD in and then a whole complete terpene profile, which there's all sorts of various terpenes that do have a physiological and psychological effect on us. So what has happened across the board is the buyers want the high THC product. So the producers produce it, and the producers are breeding. So you basically breed for high THC and bag appeal. And so you've kind of turned the product has become less diverse as a result of that. And so I would say don't try to get the thing that's the highest THC. And then at the same time, like, take a small puff and wait a half an hour, you know, wait a half an hour. You might be, you know, fucking reevaluating your whole life for the next 6 hours before you take a nap if you're not careful.
Stay away from the edibles, right? Those can really bite you in the ass too.
Dude, big time, man. Yeah.
But anyways, no, but I think like, you know, the industry in this like medical revolution, financial revolution, like I think the weed guys, like you guys were really at the forefront of something I think special. Like you guys don't get a lot of credit for all the crap you guys had to go through. Like you said in the beginning, like you were trying to liberate this plant. It wasn't really about the money. It was about like, you know, kind of the idea of, hey, how do we like change the thinking in having this be like, you know, used for people for a good thing instead of alcohol and SSRIs and all this crazy shit. Like, you know, and you've got Trump recently saying they're basically going to legalize it at a federal level as well. So you got a lot of conservatives though that are just, they're so like propagandized. I think, oh, I'm going to become a drug addict. And, you know, this in reality, like it's better than probably, you know, drinking alcohol. Right. And so
significantly by orders of magnitude, dude, there's like, I think I don't know what prompted me to pull this up recently. I was asking ChatGPT about drugs and overdoses and whatnot. And nobody in recorded history has overdosed on cannabis. Nobody ever. There's no record of somebody dying from ingesting cannabis, which is absolutely mind-blowing. So I have a few thoughts I want to unpack here. So yeah, it wasn't about the money for me. It was like a personal mission. Actually, a little bit of information I left out that was very impactful on me for me in my life was when I was 20 years old, my mother committed suicide. She drank a lethal dose of a barbiturate that she had like crushed up and ingested. And so that kind of fueled me to go down a path I would otherwise not gone because it was tough. And, you know, like my dad was upset about it. I had a lot of people who were in my life upset that I was growing weed, right? So it was a personal mission. I used to think like every time I bag a pound and sell it into the free market, it's a fuck you to big pharma. And now I look back, it's a fuck you just to the fiat paradigm, right? I'm a free market maximalist. I think people should be able to do what they want to do if it's not causing harm to other people. Now, some of the extreme conservatives or, you know, boomers or older generations would argue that cannabis consumption is causing harm to our society. Now, I think there's a stigma, you know, the Cheech and Chong era or the proverbial stoner that's dirty, dingy, lazy, dumb. You know, I think that stigma or that persona or whatever you want to call it, I think it comes from the fact, and I've noticed this, people who are suffering, what they want is getting further out of reach. Like whatever that the income was in 1980 relative to a house price compared to today, it's like it's an absolutely different world significantly. So I think that the people who are suffering, that are lazy, that are, you know, not eating well, they're in physical and emotional pain, they're attracted to ingesting cannabis because it makes you feel better. It fucking really does. And it has very little downside. Like I've never smoked weed and then been like, oh, I feel like shit right now. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm hungry. Maybe I get hit with a little wave of like anxiety, like, oh, I've been a little too hubristic or I was a dick to my wife or whatever. Like I need to get right with myself or, you know, but I've never smoked weed that woke up the next day like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to die. I need to puke and rehydrate for the next 36 hours before I can fucking do anything. Right. So yeah, there is a stigma around it that I think the conservatives, you know, buy into. And, you know, one of the reasons I actually was permitted so quickly. So the land use ordinance in Humboldt County was very specific. You had to have like particular setbacks. And Humboldt County was the first county in the state of California to come out with their land use ordinance to permit cannabis activity. And so I bought this property in consultation with the planning department. It's got the right soils. I did a biological study. I got the right setbacks from all my neighbors. It's agriculturally zoned land. As soon as I closed escrow, my neighbor started to get a little disgruntled. And then when I submitted my application to the county, he blasted off a bunch of threats of lawsuits, letters, the whole thing. And it forced the county's hand to decide whether or not they were going to permit my property or deny it. So in a lot of ways, it was a blessing in disguise. But that was a classic case of an individual who thought this I don't know, 10,000 square feet of greenhouses were just going to fuck his life up, and it didn't. And actually, people like him made the permit process so challenging. Humboldt County is now in shambles, really. Oh, wow. And so I do think that the jurisdictions that go recreation, there is a group of people there, you know, Colorado, Washington, California, it's the same in every state. They freak out. After a while, then you don't hear about it anymore because people aren't smoking weed and going and committing crimes or driving off cliffs or causing, you know, there's no chaos associated with cannabis consumption. So when the rescheduling goes into effect and they start to do research, you'll have pharmaceutical companies get involved. The big impediment was the banking. You know, you can't have no FDIC insured financial institution is going to give you a bank account. So that's why all the big money has stayed away from the cannabis game. And it's a really hard business. It's a commodity. You know, you have jurisdictional competition. So if you're a producer, you're in the business and you want to do business, California is the worst place to do business. It's the most regulated, business hostile jurisdiction in the country. So I know a lot of people that left and went to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is like, oh, you want a permit? Here you go, $2,500. We'll have it ready next week. I know people in California that spent many, many years and millions of dollars and still haven't gotten anywhere. Dan Bilzerian couldn't run a successful cannabis business. Literally, the guy spent fucking $500 million or some shit. Couldn't run a successful cannabis business. So, yeah.
All right, so let's transition now to Bitcoin. So you're doing this, you see the writings on the wall, the government's going to fuck it all up. You're like, I got to get out of this because my property is in a proof of stake network that who knows what's going to happen with the rules, the regulations, their ability to tax it, their ability to levy it, their ability to take it. You know, you've got all these things. And so in your head, you're like, you find Bitcoin. So what was like your orange pilling moment? Did you go through like a shit coining phase? Like where was it that you really like saw the light and you're like, oh my God, like how did I miss this? Or like, this is the thing.
Well, good question. So December of 2017, a friend of mine brought Bitcoin up to me and they're like, hey, you should check this like 1 hour documentary out on YouTube or whatever. I forget which one it was, but it was good. It was good enough to where I was like, holy shit, this is for real. This is a big deal. And so I remember talking to my dad and my accountant who had been fantastic. He did a lot of great work for me over the years. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to sell this property. And they're like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. And I'm like, I'm going to put all the money into Bitcoin. Both of them were like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're like, you don't understand how good of a position you're going to be in. Like neither one of them, we've never had as much money as you're about to have. You're going to just fucking squander it and put it into Bitcoin. I'm like, oh, fuck, dude, you know, all right. So I took a little bit more conservative approach. I probably I put half of it or so into Bitcoin and then bought some gold and silver with the rest of it. And then over the next handful of years, I didn't spend a whole lot of time going down the rabbit hole because the general thesis, I was there. But I was kind of still under the idea that it was going to completely revolutionize how our society works and change everything forever, or it was going to get shut down. And when the Sailor series hit, that's when I started to like, so my wife was pregnant. I had taken a little bit of time off and I was going down the rabbit hole because I had some more money coming in. I got this gold and silver. What am I going to do with it? I don't know if I want to keep this gold and silver. I was tired of the physical element of the gold and silver. And it had been in the back of my head the whole time. Like I really think I should just go all in on Bitcoin. That and I believed at that time that it had the potential to completely change the world. And, I was 35, 36 years old at the time. And I was kind of thinking like, well, I put my energy into something I believe in, and let's say it all blows up, then I just go back to the drawing board and make some more money, whatever. And the Sailor series hit. When the Sailor series hit, I was like, oh my gosh, this is for real. This is fucking for real. I remember I went to my wife, like after I listened to the last episode, and she's pregnant. And I'm like, hey, we got some, gold and silver. We're planning on moving. I think we need to get rid of the gold and silver, put it into Bitcoin. And I don't think we should buy a house. She's like, why? I'm like, why do we want a house? She's like, so we can raise our family. We can be safe and blah, 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 all the logical reasons. And I'm like, well, I think we're better off if we rent and we have inviolable, hyper-mobile, unfuckwithable capital that nobody can mess with. If there's a problem, like, and we were trying to figure out where do we go? Texas, Tennessee, Florida, like, fuck, it's a big decision. And I'm like, we can just go wherever we want, whenever we want. We have a problem. There's World War III. There's chaos. Just, hey, all right, landlord, I'm out of here in 30 days. See you later. Jump on a plane, memorize 12 words. All your capital goes with you. She was like, sounds great. Let's do it. So then I unloaded my gold and silver position, which was also a very interesting experience. I had fucking so many monster boxes of silver. I'm mailing them to JM Bullion in fucking Texas, dude. I got, I roll up in my truck with these duct taped wrapped boxes with 40 pounds of silver in each box of my dolly, Yeah, just waiting too. And at the time I was just like, oh my God, I could wake up tomorrow. Bitcoin could be $1 million. Like, it's fucking cheap, man. When's this wire transfer gonna come through so I can get out of this physical product, dude?
No, I feel that. And so then you guys decided to move to Florida. Then I guess you guys ended up moving to Florida. So you guys, And so before that, so you went all in on Bitcoin, and then at some point you started creating content. So you were like, hey, like, I really believe in this. I'm going to start like talking about it in a way. And then that led you to, I guess, getting on the What Is Money show, and then ultimately going to be a co-host of it, which is pretty amazing, right?
Yes, I'm quite stoked about it.
So tell us about that journey. Like, you just started being like, you know what, you got on X, or like, I don't know where you first started, but yeah, how did you start making content, and what was that like?
Yeah, so I had started an X profile, obviously Twitter at the time, many, many years ago, just to get the handle that was the name of my cannabis business. But I wasn't active on Twitter. I had no idea what was going on Bitcoin Twitter. I would see like Matt Cratter's videos. He would post something. There'd be like a Twitter post, Giacomo would say something or whatever. But I definitely wasn't in the Twitterverse. So I got all of my orange pilling through YouTube and audiobooks. And it was, I think, September of 2023. I go to my wife and I'm like, dude, I'm fucking losing my mind. Like, I think I'm going to go to Pacific Bitcoin. I'm going to buy a VIP ticket. And I want the most exposure possible to meet other Bitcoiners. Like, I literally am this deranged Bitcoin maxi running around yelling at the same 20 people all the time about fucking get some Bitcoin, figure it out, guys. Like, you spend 68,000 hours of your life working for money. It'd be prudent to spend 100 learning about what money is, right? Everybody's complaining. If the state would just shut down the black market, or all this shit about the cannabis business. I'm like, dude, you guys need to listen to the Sailor series. It'll change the way you look at the world. Like, I feel like Neo, and you guys are all fucking plugged into the Matrix, bitching about how it works. Figure it out. Like, it's not that complicated. So anyways, I go to Pacific Bitcoin, met a bunch of people. I'm like starstruck. I'm like, dude, these are like my heroes. Like, I fucking couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is my place, right? And so I'm a quiet guy. I spent 16 years growing cannabis, basically in like hiding, really, until the last few years when it was recreationally legal and I had a state license. And so, yeah, I was talking with everybody, and Matt Cratter and I had a couple conversations. It was 2 days. We're chatting, a group of people, and, hey, I appreciate your videos, respect what you do, blah, blah, blah. And then the VIP party, he was talking with a few individuals. I was telling him my backstory about cannabis, blah, blah, blah. We're all chatting, have a good time. I brought a bunch of doobies. I'm fucking smoking everybody out. Dude, me and Kaysen and a few other people just burning these fat joints. And the next day, Cratter comes up to me and he's like, hey, man, I think you should start making content. And I was like, oh, fuck, dude. Like, it was a big compliment, but I'm thinking, like, that's the last thing I'm going to do. Like, I'm kind of like, I'm a little social. I don't know. I wouldn't say I have social anxiety necessarily, but it was like, and then I'd started to think a little bit more about the potential, I'm listening to Eric Kaysen being like, they're going to put us in fucking key extraction camps, the digital panopticon, like, oh fuck, and I was like, oh dude, do I want to come out as a public Bitcoiner? Like, I don't know, and I'm very risk adverse, which I guess you could say is ironic for somebody who's got a 100% Bitcoin allocation and spent 16 years of my life growing cannabis, but yeah, pretty risk adverse. So yeah, that was a very impactful experience hanging out at the conference for those 2 days. And on the plane back is when I think October 7th had broken out the day before I was flying home. So, and I just got on Twitter and like started to use my Twitter account. And I think I had like posted a paragraph or two about Bitcoin. I didn't have a photo of myself up, but anyways, now I'm watching like all this chaos take place in Israel and Gaza. And I'm thinking like, okay, fuck, like this is a problem. I'm very adverse to this. You know, these forever wars wouldn't be a thing if the government couldn't print money, right?
Yeah.
So I get home, got my 2-year-old daughter at the time, and I'm just like, it was just eating at me for like a couple of weeks, maybe 2 months or so, until one day I was just like, fuck it, I don't give a fuck, dude. Like I'll stick my neck out there, which I don't really think it's that much risk necessarily. And I'll start making some videos. I'm like, how am I gonna make videos? Like, I was pretty busy. I was working this consulting gig on this property that was right across the street from the farm that I owned. I was like, all right, I guess I'll just fucking light up this 4-gram doobie and turn my iPhone on and just start talking shit, And I did. And like, I had a couple videos right in the beginning there that like flew all over Twitter. They were reposted like 100 times, whatever. And I got a ton of attention, relatively speaking. I mean, I literally had like 300 followers. Within a couple weeks, I had a couple thousand. Mm-hmm. Samson Mao reposted one of my rants. Like I woke up the next day, I'd gained like 2,000 followers overnight, which actually made me slightly uncomfortable. It was definitely a process. I was like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting this. Right. And so then I got invited on a bunch of the, podcasts and told my story, similar stuff we've talked about. Then I got invited to do a keynote in Madeira. So in 2024, I did like the whole conference tour, went to El Salvador a couple times, went all over Europe.
Oh, nice.
Then I was introduced to Robert. He invited me on the show. And so this was March of last year. My wife and I were like, yeah, let's take a 3-week trip to Florida. Cause we're like, figuring out where we're going to move. Clearly, I'm not going to continue in the cannabis business. I had a 2-year contract that had come up, and I was in a crop-to-crop arrangement with the people I was working with. And so I was like, yeah, we'll go to Florida for 3 weeks. We flew into Tampa. We hung out in Sarasota. We got some Bitcoin friends there. And we came to Miami, spent a week and a half or so here. Robert and I recorded the show, and then it was funny too because when I was done, I was like, it was a big moment for me. Like this was my favorite podcast to listen to: the Sailor series, the Booth series, the Lowry series. I mean, I could just go on about so many good episodes. And I go downstairs and my wife's like, how'd you do? And I'm like, I don't know, I wasn't that riveting, but I was authentic as fuck. I'll tell you that much. I just, I was me. There's no question about that. And then so we're having dinner later on that night, and Robert's like, hey, so you guys are planning on moving to Florida at some point? And I was like, yeah, in the next couple of years. He's like, would you be interested in co-hosting the show? I was like, yeah, let's do that. That sounds good. Cool. I'll message you in 48 hours when I'm home. I'll make a final decision. So we get home. We flew in late at night. Next morning, having some coffee, chatting with my wife for like 5 minutes. I was like, we're going to have to do this, right? And of course, I was waiting. I'm like, oh, but if we just fucking wait till Bitcoin's like 500 grand a coin or whatever, just playing that game of like, oh, how long can we wait it out? No, we got to execute on this. I turn around, and shit you not, like 5-10 minutes later, I walk through the living room and I look into our master bedroom, and my wife had everything ripped out of the closet. Like she's already packing. I'm like, okay, so we're doing it, and a series of miracles. I sold a bunch of stuff. I flew back here like 2 weeks later, leased a house. Literally in 28 days, I was here in Miami in a new rental. Like, all right, Robert, I'm fucking ready to go, man. Let's do this.
That's awesome. How do you like it so far out there in Miami?
Dude, it's amazing. When
you're like a SoCal guy, right? You're a SoCal guy or California guy.
Yeah, I grew up in Redlands. My mom lived in Redlands. My dad lived in Pasadena. So Southern California, Los Angeles, Inland Empire upbringing. And then 16 years from 2009 to 2025 in Humboldt County. Humboldt was really cool. Especially when like the cannabis industry was popping. A bunch of rebellious, entrepreneurial, badass people, freedom fighters, doing what they believe to be the right thing to do. It had a real good energy. Come 2021, the vibes got pretty ominous pretty quickly. I knew good dudes that were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year working for $30 an hour as assessors for the county fucking, whatever. Like it was pretty incredible. Yeah, when we got here in March for the podcast appearance, when I flew into Tampa, I'm like driving from the airport into Sarasota, and I'm thinking like, where's the crackhead with a needle in his arm taking a shit on the sidewalk? Like, it's got to be some of that, right? Like, I didn't really see any of that. Like, even the people who are struggling economically, it has a much different feel than it did in California, especially, being in Humboldt. If I was going to go to see my father who's in LA, I'd drive through the Bay Area and into LA. I was at Fred Krueger's event. I forget what he called it at the time last year in Santa Monica, walking, after the event, we're going to some, restaurants, whatever. There's crackheads, people that you walking through, you're like, this fucking bum could prick me and try to steal my iPhone right now, Very different feel here. And I think part of it is you don't have any state income tax. There's less regulation. The gun laws, that's a really important one. Like, I feel like a lot of the edgier people are less prone to screw with you because you might be packing heat.
Yeah.
And so there's something there. Like, a place that has a state income tax and significantly less regulation is doing significantly better than California is. And then as far as the gun laws, we just went open carry, which is mind blowing for me.
Oh, wow. In Florida, you guys have open carry.
Florida just went open carry, I think, like 6 months ago. So it's like, it's mind blowing. Like, wait a second, you're getting more freedoms and rights. Like, dude, I'm taking some firearms training courses with like a guy who teaches SWAT teams and whatnot. And I needed to order a couple thousand rounds of 5.56 and 9mm. And I go to my front door, wasn't expecting the package to be there that early. And I'm like, go get my mail. And I look down, I'm like, that's my ammunition. It had been sitting there on my front porch for 8 hours. In California, I like, just to go buy a box of fucking 5.56, you got to have a background check, cost $25. You have to like wait a day. So I definitely love Florida. Florida is fantastic.
Now, I mean, in your experience was it seemed like the weed industry had a lot of liberals though. Like, it seems like you're more kind of libertarian leaning. And it seemed like a lot of the cannabis people that, are out there seem to be very, very liberal in the sense of being Democrats and on the other side of the aisle. And here we have this new freedom technology. We have Trump bringing about this, crypto revolution. We have like, we got a lot of shit going on. You see what's happening in Minnesota, right? A lot of people are angry in the politics and stuff. And, really, a lot of this, I don't think can be fixed through the political system. We live in this constant regulatory environment of taxation and inflation. And, we truly believe that, Bitcoin is this new revolution, right? Bitcoin is this digital 1776, and that we together collectively have to just stop paying federal income taxes, like full stop. Right? Like,
yep.
There is no, there is no way, there's no future in which we continually hand over our power, authority, and money to people to go make decisions, right? There's 400 people in Washington that make the decisions for 300 million, which is, by itself, a proof of stake, shitcoin, right? A proof of stake democracy, allowing this small group of people to change the consensus rules for everybody else. And, what are any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think. So, are you familiar with Johnny Harris? Johnny Harris has a YouTube channel. He makes these documentary style, like 30 to 45-minute YouTube episodes. So they're phenomenal, right? And I like watching his episodes when they come out. I pretty much watched most of them over the last couple of years. And he did one recently on like what the lifestyle for an individual who makes $100,000 a year versus someone who makes $1 million a year versus 10 million a year versus 100 million a year, and then what a billionaire can live like. He's got like animation with the stacks of cash, so you can see visually the difference. And this guy has identified problems in our society so accurately, and then right at the goal line fumbles spectacularly and is like, we need more regulation, we need the redistribution of wealth. And I think that's the issue a lot of people have, that that the whole left-leaning political, I don't know, group, if you will, I think that we're all looking at society and we can see the same issues, but the idea of taxing the rich is basically property confiscation or redistribution of wealth, which an idea for your average individual sounds good until you're in the bracket that's being redistributed from. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait, no, don't redistribute my wealth. It's like when you see those Twitter clips of someone being like, oh, would you be down to house immigrants? And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And they're like, hey, we got this guy right here. Can he come stay with you? They're like, no, like absolutely not. Right. So I do think I think that's just a common theme, it's like people see the cantillionaire effect, Cantillon effect, the wealth distribution is so out of balance. You got this K-shaped economy. The property owning class is getting wealthier at the expense of the non-property owning class. That's all a result of central banking and Keynesian economics. And I find also that the people who are the most educated, they're the most in support of the system. They're the ones that are they have the hardest time grokking Bitcoin. Somebody who's spent a couple $100,000 and gone to some like Ivy League school and gotten brainwashed with this Keynesian pseudoscience, like they can't get it. Like, what do you mean that the government needs to centrally plan the money? Like, oh, capitalism's a problem. No, we don't have capitalism. Like one of the many things he says that I love is like, dude, if you have a central bank, you don't have a capitalist society. You're half communist right out of the gate. Money is half of every transaction. And if your money is communist or socialist or centrally planned, you don't have a capitalistic society. So yeah, and I had a buddy that I worked with at the last cannabis facility that I was at, the one I was filming my little shit talking rants in the greenhouse there. And we had like a 2-year debate about, Bitcoin and regulation and free markets and whatever. And like, after like 2 years, this guy started to see the light, I would say, but it's a little counterintuitive. It's the whole who's going to build the roads? Yeah. Like, what do you, we've done fine for a long, long time. Like the free market does work this stuff out. And so, yeah, I just think that, cannabis operators, most of the people in California, I think it's kind of changing a little bit, but you have these left-leaning individuals who have identified a problem accurately. Now they're wrong about the solution. It's a little ironic, but the idea of more property rights violations to solve the problem created by the violation of property rights through the debasement of your currency, it's nonsensical. But as far as
we're basically allowing them to pick the winners and losers, right? Whereas, in a free, open, voluntary society, like individuals would just do what's in their best interest, and then laissez-faire, right? You'd leave your other people to do what they were going to do as well. And I think it's just a beautiful weapon now that we can enact at some point to where we don't have to fight with each other, right? The liberals can go do what they want to do, right? If they want to chop their dicks off and not have any kids, and like they'll just right, like evolution will just naturally take care of that, right? We don't have to get angry at them and go fight them, and we can go live over here and have our beef and our kids, and and I think it's just really gonna set humanity kind of on this new course in that direction. So
yeah, and there's, I don't know, the depopulationists, the Bill Gates psychopaths of the world. Like, once again, I think that these guys have accurately identified a problem. Like, there is a problem. Resources aren't evenly distributed. Like, what do we do? I think the solution is kill 7.5 billion people. Some of these psychopaths seem to think that that's what you should do. And as far as like, yeah, the transgender thing, like I was, in high school, dude, there was guys in my high school that were gay. They hung out with everybody. Like, it was fine. They weren't getting beat up or picked on or whatever. I started to think back a couple of years ago. I'm like, wait, fuck, I got these people. I got to celebrate. Now I'm upset. Wait, hold on. Your behavior is not good for the long-term success of our species. Now I'm on the side of we should ostracize you.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a problem until now we got to celebrate you. And I got to worry about who's around my children. I can't send my kids to public school, like, because there's fucking all this lunacy in the world. So I do think the pendulum maybe is starting to swing back the other way. We're noticing a lot more people are becoming much more conservative. As far as the transgender stuff, the promiscuity, this YOLO mentality that we have culturally, especially in the younger generations. We're seeing, I'm sure you're obviously, we're seeing a movement of people being like, wait a second, let's go back to some of these old values that worked for a long, long time. which is refreshing.
Yeah. And so, yeah, the Laurie series is probably one of our favorites. Jason Laurie is probably, one of our most interesting characters. He's kind of come back on the scene recently in some recent posts, going to produce a new book. What is your opinion on soft war? And, what do you think of that whole thing? Because he gets a lot of shit from people, or has in the past. And,
Yeah, I remember even Cratter. I actually brought this up to Cratter. Like, hey man, this was at Pacific Bitcoin. I don't necessarily think this was a private conversation. I'm like, yeah, he made a video about Lowry being a spook potentially, right? And he wasn't directly calling him a spook, but he was like, the whole theme of the video was like, Bitcoin is not a weapon. And I was like, what's up with that? And he's like, I just, I wanted to go on record in case the government ever had an issue with my YouTube channel or me that, Bitcoin's not a weapon. The landscape has seemed to change a little bit since September, October of 2023. Now we got the SBR and we got, the ETFs, and Strategy's got 600,000+ coins. Like, we're definitely going the right direction for the most part. So yeah, but with Lowry, I think he gets, I don't really know why people have an issue with him. I think maybe some of it is just the Twitter trolls, it's easy to pick on this, space boy, he's a spook, blah, blah, blah. But his thesis is phenomenal. I think a lot about the incentive to violence. For all of known history, I'm a psychopath. I don't give a fuck. If I'm capable, you have what I want. I just kill you and take it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Literally, that's why I think so. We carry like inherited and ancestral trauma of like trying to protect ourselves from being killed and having our shit taken from us. Like that for hundreds of thousands of years. Like, that's life. Like, have kids, get some stuff to like raise those kids and prevent some barbarians from killing me and taking it all, right? Like, that's fucking pretty much it,
Yeah.
And if you can lock that down, then like, all right, maybe let's like make clothes that are beautiful and like do some fun shit, but like really it's still all about like, make sure you don't get killed and have your shit taken. And so if you can't get someone's stuff or their money, if you kill them, that is so profound. Like, Robert did a keynote many years ago, and it was 2-to-1. I heard it. I loved it. It was all about taking versus making, and if you can't take what somebody has, then you need to make a deal and have a consensual exchange of some sort. So in the times that we live in, where there's, geopolitical conflict, divide, competition over resources, competition over the money printer, the new world order, all of this garbage, whatever, that we're dealing with in the world today, the concern about like nuclear war is real. A lot of people are concerned about, hey, maybe we have World War III, some city gets nuked, this could be problems. The idea of having a kinetic power projection stalemate. Like when I heard Lowry say that, I'm like, that's fucking on the money right there. That is right. Like, we can't dispute over, how does he say it, the state in chain of custody with kinetic power projection. Like, we've hit the point where like the way we would resolve that dispute could be the end of our civilization or kill a significant percentage of the people on the planet. Like, that's not ideal. So soft war, and the idea that you would, be mining and projecting electricity to have the right to put that block on the blockchain and protect that ledger, I think that is a huge deal. And, I thought actually going back to after the conflict in the Middle East broke out, and I'm sitting there, looking at my daughter thinking like, oh man, like, do I want to be a public Bitcoin? There's things that have changed since then that hadn't happened at that time. And I thought about him a lot. Like, wait a second, this guy wrote this book. The book got pulled. He's been silent for maybe like 6 months or a year at the time. And I'm like, dude, the smartest people, the most powerful people in the world are figuring this out right now. Like, it's a game theoretic shelling point. Like, this is the solution. And I'm quite confident that we're going to reorganize around this monetary protocol. So yeah, I absolutely love Larry.
And if you keep extrapolating, Laurie's thesis to the individual, right? We are in essence the weapon operators, right? Because if we choose to comply or not to comply, and we weaponize our assets behind this wall of electricity that nobody can take, right? This is how we get to this digital 17th. If enough of us, right, had just said, you know what, we're opting out of your game, because every time we hand over our power and authority and money to you guys, you go blow it. We saw what happened with Doge, right? We saw what happened and what's happening with all these other things that we have no control over, no authority over, all the waste, abuse, and corruption. We have to say no at some point, don't we? I mean, this country was founded on a tax revolt, 3% tax on tea. Here we are with over 50% with inflation and taxation. And, you know, Trump is doing everything he can to get rid of Internal Revenue Service and provide new funding through tariffs, which I think, you know, this country worked on before we even had an income tax. And the income tax was set up, you know, the same year as a central bank, right? And so we're just big advocates and really kind of extrapolating Lori's thesis to be like, look, this is the real revolution. The individuals that stop complying together in a movement all across the world, right, will force the hand of government to not only shrink what they're doing, right, because they won't have the authority or they won't have the power to do it. But at the end of the day, like you minimize these governments completely, right? The governments become service providers at the end of the day, because if they can't forcefully take stuff from you, then they have to negotiate with you. They have to treat you better at some point, right?
As they say on the streets, they got to come correct.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the government's gonna fuck around and find out. You know, some jurisdictions will. California, I think I saw on BTC Sessions. I haven't looked to see if this is an actual thing in a bill, but you know, Sessions is a credible individual. I believe California put into effect some legislation that'll allow them to seize Bitcoin that's been on an exchange for more than 3 years.
Yep.
So then you go into like, you know, property taxes, like real estate taxes, you know, unrealized capital gains taxes. As soon as any jurisdiction in California would be a good example of one that would attempt to do this, they're going to find out that this is hypermobile capital that you can't even necessarily prove if somebody has it. Like if they're not sending transactions out of that wallet, they need a pub key to see if that's even happening. And like, what do you even still have the Bitcoin? And so, you know, another thing that Robert says that I like is, you know, this is a forcing function that'll cause governments to be beholden to the preferences of their citizens. You know, when I realized, I don't know how long ago this was, like, wait a second, there's an exit tax. Like, so if I don't like the deal I have with the jurisdiction or the country that I live in, I can't freely just go somewhere else. Like if I have a certain amount of money, they take a percentage of it. What the fuck are you talking about? That's not, I'm not really that free. I'm free within the certain confines, but like that's relative freedom. That's not absolute freedom, you know? And so it's going to be wild watching, you know, the clown world grapple with this immutable protocol, man. It really is.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like putting a pot of gold around a bunch of thieves, right? And it's like, what are these guys going to do with it, right? And I think that's what's happening in some of the political sense and maybe some of the Wall Street firms as well. That's why some have gone out of business is you put this thing there that, you know, they've always been incentivized to lie, cheat, steal their way into, you know, getting the next thing. And here's this thing that can't be messed with in that way. And so it is going to be interesting how this plays out. Some might say, you know, enjoy the show. You know, but a lot of us here don't think Satoshi was just some random guy in his basement that created this code, right? We kind of think there was a military plan that maybe created this protocol to help save humanity from itself, right? In that way. You know, we're big believers in the QAnon conspiracy theory. Not sure if you've heard about that before.
Yep. I have.
So we kind of connect some of those dots. Not sure if you've seen some of the previous episodes I did with Robert, where I kind of go through some of that, but it's definitely interesting in the coincidences that kind of stack up over time.
Yes.
And so any thought on who Satoshi is and maybe that's
yeah, you know, the idea that Satoshi was this single I kind of struggle with that one a little bit. He definitely had a very diverse knowledge base. I think it's miraculous in a lot of ways. It's like Kaysen wrote a essay about how Bitcoin is messianic. It's of the Messiah. Mm-hmm. Something very special about when it happened and how it happened. If it was any later, the ability for Satoshi, whether that's an individual group of individuals, to do so anonymously would have been significantly reduced. Any earlier, a lot of the discoveries, technological, whatever things hadn't been sorted out. And so it happened right at the right time. I think Satoshi Nakamoto is, what is it? It's wisdom from the field, or I'd have to look that up. But there's a reason why people say that they think it was the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. If that's the case, it definitely doesn't matter. And it would have been some individuals who figured out how to put this protocol together as a layer on top of the internet that's unstoppable, that would change the course of our civilization. So whether it's, the CIA, time traveler, some random Japanese individual, Adam Back, Hal Finney, fucking whoever all these people think it could have been, Jack Dorsey, I don't think it matters. I think it's pretty fun to think about. But, one idea that helped me become less upset about this world is the understanding that the physicality of gold and property incentivizes violence, and fractional reserve derivative systems. You take your gold to a warehouse to give you a certificate. You go buy a villa and, you live in London, you want to go to Italy, get a villa. You're not going to take your gold on a covered wagon. Some bandits will just prick you and take it, right? So you're going to use some sort of certificate and in a warehousing system. But that created what I refer to, and I don't know if this is the best way to put it, but it is like a game theoretic fuckness. That means that the market actor who can get away with dishonesty has the advantage. I think that's also part of why most people are so broken inside. You look at the world and you're like, wait, why is this shitbag doing so well? Why is that shitbag so doing? Wait a second. And then people have problems with Trump. Like, I don't know that Trump's history is ideal. It's a classic, case of hate the game, not the player. And with Trump getting into office, I'm more on the excited side because he's not obviously bought and paid for. And that narcissistic, self-centered thing that he has that causes people to go crazy is the very thing that could cause him to do some really good things for this country. I think that guy wants to go down in the history books for doing good things. And I think he has some smart people around him, Lowry being one of them, and a whole group of other individuals that understand Bitcoin. And it's like a mind virus. Once you start, if I can have a conversation with somebody and plant enough seeds, like I was a cultivator for a long time. So if I could just get enough of these little thought nuggets in there, like if they're intellectually honest and curious at all, like it's game over. At some point, they're going to be like, oh, fuck, this is a big deal, So I am very hopeful. I have a positive outlook. And I just, the fact that you can't get someone's Bitcoin unless they willingly give it to you is such a big deal. We're going to see, however long it takes, the honest market participant who provides the most value will dominate the marketplace. The ETFs, like if one of them is issued more claims to Bitcoin than they have Bitcoin on reserve, then the game will eventually be proof of reserves and the dishonest one will go out of business, which is the opposite of the way it's been for all of known history, as far as I can tell. So it is definitely this inversion in incentives. I think about it like all of known history pre-2009 was the BB era before Bitcoin. And now we live in the AB era. It's like a fundamentally different reality. You have this metaphysical, inviolable property that's not debasable, not confiscatable. You can carry it around in your head. It changes so much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. We're on the break of this thing. We have Bitcoiners fighting amongst each other all the time over, the Nazis debate. And, we have debates over, is Trump a good guy or a bad guy, And so some of the guests you've had on it, I think are, funny in that way, right? They've got a pretty strong opinion, like the doomers, like Simon Dixon, right? Like I kind of go back and forth with that guy sometimes. And so even the Craters out there, love him for all what he's done, but he's kind of going off on this Nazis thing. And you're like, guys, man, you guys are getting a little too crazy out there. Let's celebrate the wins and let's move forward. So it must be kind of challenging, I guess, for you because you maybe have to like hold your tongue on some of it. I don't know what some of your guests or
not so much.
Okay.
So Robert got Jameson lined up, Jameson Lop, to be on the show. I was so excited because I wanted to ask that guy some fucking questions. My wife was pregnant and she was having some heart palpitations, which is kind of normal, you know, and at some point, and it wasn't too crazy, but she texted me, and so I had to bounce, so I didn't get to interview Jameson. But you know, the core versus knots thing, what really caught my attention is when the CSAM conversation started to become more prevalent. I hadn't thought about that before. I definitely was kind of had the free market, you know, perspective, like it'll work itself out. If there's blockchain bloat, it drives people to layer 2, and that'll then free up space in the main chain, whatever. But that's one that got me concerned. I do believe just because the world is so fucked in the ways that it is, that it's important to not mess this thing up. So I kind of default to a very conservative perspective. Like, let's not do monkeys on fucking Bitcoin. We have all these shitcoin side chains that we could do NFTs and all this stuff on. Why do we need to put it onto Bitcoin? And the real thing that has me concerned is if there is a bunch of filth that goes on to the main chain, that gives the government the ability to say, all right, you filthy fucking peasants, good job. You got this now, you know, nuclear grade and institutional grade asset up going $2 trillion marketplace. Like, fantastic. The tech, all of the bit proposals, all the development that's taking place to get Bitcoin where it is here today. Good job, but it's illegal to run a node. And we're going to go ahead and let Zuckerberg and Fink and fucking Google and Amazon, all these big guys, they can run the nodes. And I think that that's the most logical thing that I've ever thought of as far as a way to disrupt Bitcoin's decentralized element. Now, layer on top of that, you do have a whole world with other jurisdictions where it's not going to be illegal to run a node, and it would put whatever jurisdiction tried to ban nodes at a disadvantage. But look at what politicians have done. They do stupid shit all the time. So I do think it could create a bunch of public FUD. It could suppress the price. They could make it illegal to run nodes, or very unfavorable or societally frowned upon, and that could kick this revolution down the road. So that is my concern around op return. You know, and Lop said in the interview with Robert, like, Robert's like, hey, what benefit is there in blowing the op return from 80 bytes to 100,000 bytes? And he's like, well, it's some fringe case where, like, you know, kind of maybe there's going to be some stuff in the future we could benefit. It's like, then why? Why? And then you look at Bitcoin Core. I don't know much about all the developers in there, but I don't think they're a bunch of diehard OGs with fat stacks. You know, like, what's their incentive to, like, protect the protocol? I think they want to fucking sell monkey pictures and shit. And so,
well, yeah, I think some of us, I think I'd push back a little bit on that because, you know, anytime someone makes an argument, you know, in the case of trying to use your emotions to, you know, affect your decision, I think that's, you know, and in reality, like, what we have is an evidence of a crime, right? That's being committed. And, you know, I think people have said it before, like, you know, when they found pictures of the cave walls of people being sacrificed, like, they didn't scrub the walls down because that's what happened in human history. And I think we have to be very careful because here we have finally a historical ledger that can't be messed with. You know, people can put bad stuff, but you can also put good stuff. You know, they're already trying to whitewash the COVID pandemic, that it never happened, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to come up with cures for cancer. We're going to have all these things that a historical record is probably of the utmost importance to have for future generations, hundreds of years down the road, because we don't know what kind of, you know, technologies are going to be provided for us. And we don't know, right, in this cat and mouse game of authority figures versus freedom, like, how do we know what happened in the past? We're, you know, the victors have always written what happened in the past, and we don't even have anything to compare it with because that's all we were given. We're now, like, maybe we have some sort of difference, like, hey, well, these people said this happened, right? What's the truth? And I think it's really important to protect truth because I think at the end of the day, right, truth is more valuable than money, and that just because we assign money to this protocol doesn't necessarily make it just money, right? People can do other things with it. And the second part of that is that, you know, when AI hits, you know, when it's hitting in a rapid fashion, and we can see, you know, I won't even know next year or the year after, or even now, if it's really you, Eric, right? Like, how am I supposed to know the individual on the other part of that wire is really who you say you are? And I think us being able to create maybe tokens or something on Bitcoin will allow us to possibly verify ourselves, right? Through cryptography, because I'm not going to trust any other network to do that. Like if you say, oh, hey, use this Solana authenticator or this Ethereum authenticator, that's all proof of stake. We don't necessarily
you
know
just rewind. They can just undo stuff.
And so in the future, like how can we protect our data, protect our individuality, protect our identities, right? Going into the future, I'd rather have a Bitcoin identity on chain that can be somewhat anonymous, right? Because I don't have to tell people who I am, but I can prove it, versus the government controlling my identification, which we know is just a fiat token that can be easily duplicated with fake IDs and other things. And so, yeah, I think these are tougher conversations Bitcoiners need to have. And, what does that future look like? So it's an interesting debate, and we welcome all of it, but yeah.
Yeah, and I, that's like Sailor would say, it's above my pay grade. I don't know, but the only concern that I had in any of it was CSAM and some public FUD in an attempt to make it unfavorable or illegal to run nodes. Yeah. Outside of that, I'm like free market all the way. Yeah. If somebody wants to pay for dick butts, fucking great, whatever. And as far as blockchain bloat, Lightning is doing pretty well these days, and so transaction fees and whatnot. It's the nodes and the ability to keep Booth says this all the time. As long as it stays decentralized and secure, it quite literally changes everything. It's imposing a new rule set on our civilization. So that's all I can say. I know that I care about is as long as it's decentralized and secure, fucking let's have at it, right? Put whatever you putting on there if it makes sense to do so.
Beautiful, man. Well, hey, it's been great having you on, brother. Look, every week, actually, before we send you on your way here, guys, go make sure you follow Eric V Stacks on X, and then also go check out What Is Money, the What Is Money show. Big fans of both of those things. But every guest, we also do a Pepe of the week. Okay, and so these Pepes, of course, are Bitcoin NFTs, right? They live on a layer 2, though. It's through op return, funny enough.
Nice.
And we chose a special one for you, Eric, because of course you are the cannabis king.
Dank Pepe, dude.
We have Dank Pepe because Pepe always has the dankest meme. Rareness score 76. These go for like $2,000. There's 420 of these.
Incredible.
Was of course done by Sean Leary, and of course it was the number 5 card ever produced. So yeah, we like to have fun with these rare Pepes. We think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes in that tokenization realm. So Larry Fink and Trump have gone big for tokenization. We'll see how that kind of ends up. And we'll see. Sailor has even talked about trading his stock on chain.
Yep.
See kind of how that goes. But any appearances you're going to be on in the future here that people can find you, or any other places they can reach you at?
Nope, just X, Eric V Stacks, and YouTube, Spotify, Rumble for the Whim podcast, What Is Money show, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, do you guys have some new exciting things coming for the What Is Money show? Is any new developments happening there, or?
We're trying to come up with some creative, new, unique, creative content strategies. I think we're going to do some outings. We might put a couple episodes of us doing this firearms training. I don't know, kind of add some lifestyle stuff to it. The bread and butter, obviously the whole theme for the show has been these very high level, long form conversations. Obviously that won't stop, but we want to add some new stuff for sure.
Nice. Cool, man. Well, hey, we love what you guys are doing. Big fans, and have to have you back on at some point in the future here as well. So
yeah, man, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
I did too, brother. Shade Alay, and we will catch you here soon. Yo, we are back. Can you guys hear me? Testing. Figure I might as well test the audio one more time. It looks like it's working. Pretty cool. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Eric is a patriot and super, super smart dude. And we appreciate him. He's a good guy to have in the space. And so let's keep it rolling. By the way, guys, as you can tell, I'm rocking the digital 1776 shirt. You guys don't have one yet, go to 1776.love. You can pick up the 17 hat. You can pick up a hoodie of the Digital 1776 or the t-shirt. It's going to be the official gear for the Bitcoin Vegas conference. And if you guys don't have a ticket yet for Las Vegas, we give you 10% off. Okay. So use code Pepe. You get 10% off. We're going to have a party with the frogs like we did last time. We had a pretty good turnout last time. So super fun. But let's get into the clown news of the week. Clown news is hitting hard these days. We have a new Fed Reserve chair, possibly tomorrow, guys. Actually, it looks like it may happen tomorrow. And it looks like it may be this Kevin Warch. So here's what he said about Bitcoin.
You made reference to Bitcoin, and I thought I heard a little bit of condescension that people are buying Bitcoin in these things.
But doesn't it? Charlie Munger, this is 2 or 3 years before he died, Charlie Munger attacked Bitcoin. He called it evil, in part because it would begin to undermine the Fed's ability to manage the economy.
Or it could provide market discipline. Or it could tell the world that things need to be fixed.
Bitcoin does not make you nervous.
Bitcoin does not make me nervous. I can hearken back to a dinner I had here in 2011 with someone who is another guest on your show. I won't say his name. Okay, I just did Mark Andreessen, who showed me the white paper. That was the original white paper. I wish I had understood as clearly as he did how transformative Bitcoin and this new technology would be. Bitcoin doesn't trouble me. I think of it as an important asset that can help inform policymakers when they're doing things right and wrong. It is not a substitute to the dollar. I think it can often be a very good policeman for policy. And if I were to speak more broadly to what did Charlie Munger and others perhaps have in mind, there is a proliferation of securities that go under all sorts of names. Many, if not most of them, are not worth what they might be being traded for. So what did Charlie say, and maybe his pal Warren say? There's the innovators, the imitators, and the incompetents. They're real innovators that are happening in and around that new technology. And what I would try to impart towards businesses and bankers is that the underlying technology that Mark showed me in that white paper, or tried to show me in that white paper, it's just software. It's just the newest, coolest software that will provide us an ability to do things that we could never have done before. Can the software be used for good and evil? Yes, both, like all software. Right. So I don't cast aspersions like that. If there's a final point, it's these technologies are being built here. I don't just mean on Stanford campus. I believe in the United States. And the world's most talented engineers from China and Europe and everywhere, they come to the United States even now to try to build this stuff. And my view is by building it here, that gives us an opportunity to be more productive and create something very special over the next decade.
That was interesting by Kevin. Did he just perhaps slip out that Bitcoin was built in America? Hint, hint. What a great choice, Trump. Of course, he's part of the Bilderberg group, but, do we care? No, we don't really care what he's part of. All we care is him bringing about the Bitcoin standard. And so a super interesting pick if that ends up being him. If it ends up keeping Jerome Powell, that's funny too. I think there might be a rug in there. Who knows? Right? Who knows if they keep Jerome? That would be quite funny. Here's, of course, is Jerome Powell saying the Federal Reserve should not be controlled by elected officials. Right? And remember the Q drop where it talked about that banks control governments, governments control people. And so if you understand that, you understand that banks actually control elected officials, and it's elected officials that control the people. So here is Jerome trying to explain his way out of why they shouldn't be, directed by elected officials.
The point of independence is not to protect policymakers or anything like that. It just is that every advanced economy democracy in the world has come around to this common practice. It's just an institutional arrangement that has served the people well, and that is to have a separation between to not have direct elected official control over the setting of monetary policy.
It should only be done by a private group of people that has never been audited. The owners are unknown and has never actually provided any transparency at all. In fact, they actually ignored the subpoenas. So here you have the active Federal Reserve, who is a private corporation, ignore the subpoenas. And it's because they can't, right? They're a private corporation. So they're basically telling everybody to basically go F themselves. And, you don't have to do that because you're immune to U.S. laws. Why would you respond to them? Why would you self-incriminate yourself? So screw them. By the way, breaking news just happened right before the show. Trump is suing the IRS, you guys, for $10 billion for releasing his tax returns. Check this out.
The Fox News alert: President Trump is suing the IRS now for $10 billion for allegedly leaking his tax returns. And moments ago on the red carpet for the premiere of Melania's new movie, he dropped this bombshell.
Dave, will you be announcing your Fed share pick next week?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. Oh. And do you know who you picked?
Tomorrow? I do. Otherwise, I'll have to go to work very quickly. No, I'll be announcing the Fed chair tomorrow morning.
Wow, more on all.
Suing for $10 billion, and he picked the new, the new chair. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Should be interesting. By the way, we just had the CEO of Tether and the CEO of Rumble come and raid the channel for a cool $600. So major props to you guys. Thanks for putting us, thanks for developing the technology for us to be able to do this, and for raiding us over here at Rugpull Radio. We do appreciate it. So that was pretty cool. All right, let's get back into it. We did have some funny stuff with Peter Schiff. Of course, he was on Tucker Carlson. And, Tucker was, I've talked about Tucker being on Signal, just kind of being a little bit more hidden in his Bitcoin maximalism. But I truly believe it's under there. He's just, psyoping the public right now. But here's some clips from Peter Schiff on Tucker Carlson.
Clearly, there needs to be a new global reserve currency. You don't want it to be one owned by a geopolitical rival. So why wouldn't Bitcoin be the new global reserve currency?
Asking some tough questions, and let's hear all shifty.
You meet all these people who've made hundreds of millions. You meet kids who've made real money from crypto. Why is it throwing it away?
Well, because where did they make it? They didn't make money in crypto because they, produced products that we consume or provide services that improve our lives. The people who have made money in crypto, and I know a lot of them, they've made money in crypto because the crypto that they bought a long time ago went way up.
Well, how is that different from buying gold?
Well, I'm not people. I don't know a lot of people who got rich buying gold, right?
Well, I've done really well. Just being honest, and so have you.
No, why? Okay, we've tripled our money. Right. But I'm talking about people who bought Bitcoin for $1 and now it's $90,000, right? You're talking about people who put
so it's a big run up, but it's the same. But when you buy gold, which I own a gold company, I'm totally for buying gold, but it's not a creative act. You're not making anything.
No.
You're not making anyone's life better. You're not really adding to the sum total of the economy. You're not doing anything other than buying something low and holding until it gets high.
Oh man! By the way, Schiff has a ton of Bitcoin. You guys don't believe all the stuff he's going. He's a clickbait, actual genius, and so take half of what he says for being.
If you have fire insurance, you're trusting that if your house burns down, the insurance company is going to pay you.
For every transaction I trust there's no poison in my ice cream.
Yeah.
Every transaction.
Now, people in Bitcoin say, well, when I have Bitcoin, I don't have to trust anybody. Well, no, you have to trust everybody. You have to trust that people still want your Bitcoin, despite the fact that it has no value.
We also have to trust the electrical grid.
Well,
because it doesn't exist without it.
Right, that too. But the bigger thing is you're just trusting that the people who believe in Bitcoin, who believe that nothing is something, continue to believe that and continue to want to buy it.
If you have gold coins in your backyard, you have to trust fewer people. All you have to trust is human nature, which is attracted to gold, period.
Well, but when you own gold, you're not trusting anything because the gold itself has value.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Right. So, but if you have possession of physical gold, You're not relying on fragile systems.
Right. I mean, the only risk there is somebody could steal it from you if they find it, right? You could lose it, right? If you have gold.
So the gold boomers, by the way, interesting timing, Tucker having Schiff on, isn't it? Like the huge gold bug on during this time. Quite interesting. Let's play one more from the gold boomer because it's actually pretty hilarious.
And the world is now pulling the rug out from under the U.S. The dollar is going to collapse. The dollar is going to be replaced by gold. Central banks are buying gold to back up their currencies. They're getting rid of dollars. They're getting rid of treasuries. We are headed for an economic crisis, again, that will make the 2008 financial crisis look like a Sunday school picnic.
And so, yeah, that's kind of fun, right? Let's get into some of the strange. Oh, one more thing. Nayib Bukele bought the dip, but the Bank of El Salvador just bought $50 million worth of gold. So an interesting dynamic there with Nayib Bukele buying Bitcoin, the central bank buying gold. Yeah. Right. This is a delicate operation, it seems, as Tether is buying gold as well, right? I think a lot of these companies are actually drafting off of the plans of the central bankers, knowing they were going to pump their shiny rock to beefing up their balance sheets and restore some trust in their system, right? That's the ultimate thing here. They need to get that trust back because they've lost a lot of it, right? Because they printed so much money and they've eroded the trust of everybody else. So interesting times indeed. Let's go to the strange signal. We did have our Kirill Dmitriev, right? Our favorite Q-tard. Finally went Bitcoin. I said, hey, is this guy ever going to go Bitcoin? And so during the Davos stuff, he did actually provide a meme with, of course, a Bitcoin logo buried right there in the middle. So kind of an interesting place to put that Bitcoin logo as he finally transitioned to Bitcoin, which I said, I'm like, bro, stop with the LARPing, right? Stop with the Q-tardness until you actually post a Bitcoin thing. And he did. So that's fun. Of course, we had Saylor talk about Bitcoin is the end game. Okay. Which is interesting. Fallout. And they're calling the Caesar guy Kaiser. And I was like, oh, so Kaiser is actually pronounced Caesar, right? In German or some other way. And so, anyways, it was interesting because Max Caesar, right, is like this ode to Julius Caesar. We talked about the Covfefe dig. We talked about the fall of Rome. So, anyways, just an interesting correlation with Max Caesar, right? All hail Caesar. We had Saylor talk about, the greatest risk to Bitcoin is ambitious opportunists advocating protocol changes. Let's just build on L2 and L3 and let's ossify this thing, please. Let's just shut her down already, guys. Shut her down. This is interesting. So look, if we keep thinking about Saylor and strategy, and the agenda for Bitcoin for Corporations 2026 is live. This year, they're focusing on 3 pillars of the digital economy: digital capital, digital credit, and digital money. But I think if you keep extrapolating what Saylor is doing, you're eventually going to get to that Saylor and strategy are actually a cyber security military complex, right? They're a military firm. And that's just like, if they're going to have that much Bitcoin, they're going to have to develop products around it that are going to provide protection for networks. That's just like how it's going to work. Either they lease out the Bitcoin or they rent it out, or they're doing something where they're providing network security with all that Bitcoin out there. They're probably going to be securing a lot of networks. Okay. And so I believe that once this is fully implemented, that strategy will in fact transition not to a central bank, but to an actual military security company. So interesting times indeed. We had Max Kaiser, everyone's talking about the midterms. red versus blue, Democrats, Republicans, and here we are in the narrow path of Bitcoin. We had the U.S. debt clock with a 315 Covfefe hit. And then, I've been hopping on the spaces a lot on Bitcoin today. Lauren and Terrence run a fantastic job over there with Eric Rice is over there every day at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. Eric Rice is there. Dark Side is there. Puncher's there. So a great cast of characters that always are welcoming to my crazy opinions. So it's fun to go on with those guys. But anyways, the conversation always kind of gets stuck in fiat land over there, right? They're always talking about fiat land. And understanding Gabriel's horn is that you can put an infinitesimal amount of bit power can represent an infinitely large quantity of physical power for any number of users without dilution, giving it a disproportionate strategic value as a cybersecurity asset that is both infinitely scarce and infinitely scalable. And you see the volume of electric power, right? As the electric power gets bigger, right? Gabriel's horn just gets longer. And so you can basically hold a unlimited amount of power in one Satoshi, right? You can hold limitless amounts of power in the smallest unit of Bitcoin because it projects all that power. And it's actually fascinating. And I don't know what's taking everybody so long to get to this. Like, we were early 3-4 years ago, right? When Laura first came out with the thesis. But like, it's had a ways to like settle in to some degree, right? Like, I mean, this can't go on forever. Like, we've got to move forward at some point. And I don't know. This is just kind of it's just kind of weird that it's taken so long. But here we are, pushing signal. El Salvador is joined the Board of Peace that, of course, Trump has put together for the Jews and the Palestinians. What else did we get? Oh, we got an excellent video by this guy called Another Frog that kind of built this Titanic video that was super it was super funny. Maybe we'll play that at the end. It's pretty good though. And then we had Fink talk about it, one common blockchain at Davos, which is kind of funny.
Corruption. So I would argue that yes, we have more dependencies on maybe one blockchain, which we could all talk about. But that being said, the activities are probably processed and more secure than ever.
And let's go into the rugs of the week. Let's see. Yep, we've got the rugs of the week. Couple things here. We have, of course, just going back to the looking for the gold at Fort Knox, and it's gone. Bitcoin fixes this. This, of course, was last February 17th, 2025. We had General Mike Flynn talk about naked short selling as a national security threat because it functions as financial counterfeiting. Wow, who would have ever guessed that? Paging Patrick Byrne. Patrick Byrne, you around, buddy? We had the White House talking about tax season beginning just a few days ago. Thanks to President Trump working families. We've got no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, reduced tax. Like what? Like, I don't understand. Why is certain energy taxed and certain energy not taxed? Who says you get to fucking say any of that? And so we say, tax these motherfucking nuts, Mr. President. Okay? Tax these nuts. Gotcha. Got it? I got it. World Liberty just crossed 5 billion. So I don't know if they're wash trading. Again, this is just a stable coin, so it's not like it went up in value. It just means more people are using it. However, I still can't trade in my my World Liberty shitcoin. It won't let me trade it. Won't let me trade it for even the USD1 coin. So I'm stuck in this shitcoin because I think I only bought like a couple $100 worth, but it's worth like, I think like 3,500. So it went up, but I can't even get out of it. So I don't know like what to do with it. Kind of funny. Are you tired of seeing our country destroyed and not one person held accountable? An overwhelming 99.2% said yes. It's a clear signal from the people that something is fundamentally broken. The problem is that the 99.2% that say it's fundamentally broken, 99.1% of them are still paying their taxes to these people. They're still funding these people. They're still paying the salaries of the people that are saying it's fundamentally broken. I don't understand. If some of you like that have like, companies, if you have an employee that is stealing from you, don't you usually like let them go and stop paying them? It's like if you had an employee that worked for you and constantly every day they're going into the cash register and they're just taking money out. And you're like, hey man, can you stop doing that? And they come back the next day and you're like, hey man, can you stop doing that? And they're still doing it. And you're still getting kicked in the nuts and you're just like sitting there. So like, I don't know, maybe figure it out, guys. Figure it out what is happening there. Pretty funny. What else? We got normie Bitcoiners, of course, like Alex Gladstein talking about the more than 400 million that Trump Inc. grab has achieved via meme coin rug pulls. The liberals are so mad with Trump. He rug pulled their shit coin. And I would actually argue and say, no, Trump is actually accelerating the filter to provide Bitcoin maximalism to, strengthen our numbers and reduce some of the people that were not worthy in the first place. And so I know that may not sound nice to some of you, but nature doesn't really give a fuck. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. We've got Hodl or not being simping here. I do believe that Bitcoin is money and that all other transactions are spam. I think it's pretty obvious and self-evident. Bitcoin was created to separate state and money. Oh, I should do the baby voice, actually. I have this new voice thing. Let's see if it'll work. Let's do the baby voice. See if it'll work. All right.
Now, let's see if this... Do I sound like a baby? I'm going to talk like a baby every time we get a little bitchy, normie, like little emotional guy. So here's Hodolina. I do believe that Bitcoin is money and that all other transactions are spam. I think it's pretty obvious and self-evident. Bitcoin was created to separate state and money, not to scam people with quantum cats. Trying to cloud what Bitcoin is reminds me of trying to pretend there are countless genders and that men can be women. It's unprincipled relativism, and it probably will destroy Bitcoin if not stopped. Is that in a baby voice? And then my response, of course,
is like, yo, you woke virtual signaling cuck, missing the big picture, an entire point of Bitcoin as a ledger of history being written by the winners. Filter these motherfucking nuts, right? So there you go. You've got Hodl Night, cucking to the mask, to the filter boys. And then let's go back. We've got Jack
Cruz, which says Tether is the exit strategy for DJT, surveillance prison being crafted by Thiel. Everyone knows this in El Salvador.
Anyways, I think that's funny. Jack Cruz is going off the deep end here. He's falling too far down the rabbit hole. Remember, if you fall too far down the rabbit hole, you end up like Jack. If you don't go far enough, you end up like some of the Bitcoin normies. And so you got to have that healthy depth of rabbit hole, or else you fall through the cracks, or else you don't get to the actual truth. I know we're kind of in this weird, we're in that so like weird space. Anyways, am I muted? No, I don't think I'm muted. Did I do it again? Oh, the freaking thing, man. I got to really work. I got to figure this thing out. Okay. What else? We have the treasury rug. And let me just double check. Let's see. No wonder we haven't seen results from the U.S. Bitcoin audit. 40 million was stolen from the U.S. government seizure addresses by a teenager named Lick. Was it Ligma? Was it Ligma Nuts? Lick's dad was contracted by the Biden admin to secure the seized crypto. And so, Ligma Johnson is apparently stealing our treasury crypto. So everybody happy with that? Great, right? Rug pulls do not stop. Okay, we've got a silver rug So again, Safe Dean talked about the Bitcoin standard. And in this, it talks about why the silver bubble has popped before and will pop again if it ever inflates. As soon as significant monetary investment flows into silver, it is not difficult for producers to increase the supply. And so I think that's what's going to happen. Like we're seeing this huge run up in silver and gold. All the suppliers are going to be like, oh my gosh, like we can just print this stuff. Like we can just pull more out of this ground and it's worth 5x. And so again, Bitcoin has a difficulty adjustment. Metals don't have that. What does that mean? That means if price goes up, they can pull out more. If price goes up on Bitcoin, you can't pull more coins out of the network. Okay. You actually can't pull more coins out no matter what. And so we'll see if that happens. We'll see if supply goes crazy up to the roof and it crashes back down. We all know what happened in the Weimar where gold went shot up super fast, shut down super fast, and kept zigzagging back and forth. So a lot of volatility. There's even, I think, a new gold high income ETF, right? They're actually going to be, looking for the volatility to, basically gain income on it. There's the new Pepe ETF from Canary Capital. Yes, everybody, Pepe is coming to an ETF. And this was interesting from Matt Kofefe. Says, in Ingersoll Lockwood's 1896 novel, 1900, or The Last President, a populist president abandons the gold reserve. This floods the economy with silver, devalues currency, sparks inflation and panic, and fuels economic chaos, leading to riots and the republic's collapse. Damn, dude. Good catch, Matt. That sounds like a little eerie. And then, of course, if you guys have been following Simon Dixon, he's kind of our favorite CIA spook doomer. Tom calls him out on Opti's show, which was pretty good, too.
Dad, what Lutnick has done at Davos, first couple of days, it does seem like the first couple of weeks of 2026.
Stop for a second. I just want to make one thing abundantly clear to anybody who thinks that Simon Dixon is not City of London agent. You're out of your minds. I will not debate. I do not debate people who I don't know this, but that's my argument. I watch him and I watch the body swerve and I can tell the difference between somebody who's real and somebody who's trying to body swerve. I nearly got subsumed into that by about 6 or 7 different people over the course of my career in the last 7 or 8 years. I've watched it happen. I don't buy Simon Nixon one whit. That guy's a classic Pied Piper of walking in, saying the right things, and then body swerving and into the doomer cult. And that's his job is to keep you there all day long. No, you need hope and you need to be optimistic that you can win this fight, not lose it. Bullshit. So fuck all of that noise. And I'm dead serious. That means that goes double for Robert Barnes and it goes double for all of these people. Every goddamned one of them that has tried to keep you in this pocket. Thomas Massey's fucking off-brand Rand Paul, all of these people. They're all not your friends. They're all arguing to stay in the matrix. Thomas Massey's still screaming about fucking Epstein. And meanwhile, Trump is literally remaking the goddamned world.
Can you not agree with Tom there? I mean, he absolutely nailed it. I don't agree with everything Tom says, but he absolutely nailed Simon Dixon. He absolutely nailed Rand Paul, absolutely nailed Thomas Massey, right? They're trying to keep you in that old world, right? And that's why, like, I'm an optimist, but I'm a pessimist at the same time. Like, I'm a hybrid because anything of the old world, politics, right? Shit that happened 5-7 years ago, right? Like all the old world stuff, like, I do think of that as pessimistic. Like, you're not going to get it. You're not going to solve any of that shit, right? We're moving forward. And so I'm an optimist in all the things that provide freedom, sovereignty, power to the individual. I am very optimistic on all those things, probably like to a fault, right? I'm way too optimistic about that stuff. But my pessimism comes from all the old world shit, right? That people think are coming. The military's coming to save us. We're going to get saved by shiny rocks. We got to vote hard. Like, all that shit is gone, man. Like, that's done. So like, I'm like a hybrid here, right? To where I'm like, yo, like new world, freedom tech, like awesome. Old world politics, voting, like fuck all that stuff. Because that's literally, I think, the way we're supposed to look at it. And I could be wrong, but I don't see much redemption coming out of that old system. Like, I don't see anything happening. So like, what's the point of like expecting something to happen? Like, do people still think that like, you know, like we're going to get, like they're looking at the 2020 election results. Like, do you think we're going to find something like crazy in those things? Probably not. Like, no, we're not going to find anything. It's like the rug pulls. But by the time like it even matters, will we even need politicians to vote because AI has just solved it all? Like, think of how quickly AI is advancing. By the time the midterms are done, maybe the midterms are the last time we actually have elections, because the next one's going to be in like 2 more years after that, the president. And if AI has advanced that far as it does in only the last couple of months, think of what we can do in the next 3 to 4 years, right? Like, we won't even maybe need these people. And so like, what's the point of following that stuff if it just ends up being a rug? So I think it's a waste of energy. Thermodynamics, people, conserve your energy. That's what this is about. What else? What else do we got? We got that rug. We do have this is an Atkins one. I don't know if this is a rug. I forgot to play this one, so let's just see what he had to say.
How do you think about crypto versus any other kind of investment for the average American family out there?
Well, Andrew, a lot of people are already exposed to crypto and other sorts of assets like that through their pension funds, and because they're managed by professional managers in those pension funds. So we're talking about the 401ks now, where I mean, we have to do things with respect to the different markets very carefully. We're focused right now on private securities, private equity funds, and things like that, where again, a lot of people are already exposed to those in their managed pension funds, and so we're looking to allow people to have access to those through the 401k, through the professional management of the what is allowed into their funds, their trustees that are looking after those funds. But right. I think the time is ripe to go forward with that.
So you have the SEC and the CFTC combining forces for the crypto integration, which is just like massive. Like the thing that's happening in the financial system is nothing short of a miracle, and the mountains Trump is moving to push all this into it at the speed of light, right? There's a reason Trump wants to be the crypto capital of the world, right? Thanks to President Trump, America is the crypto capital of the world. President Trump signing the Genius Act. And so, like, why isn't he becoming the shiny rock capital of the world? Like, can someone explain that to me? Well, that's because shiny rocks are the enemy's weapon, right? They're not here to help us. And so, gold bugs are going to get wrecked at some point. And, we'll just see when it happens, because gold is not scarce. Silver is not scarce. Have fun staying poor. I want to play the Titanic video that another frog made. And let's see if you can catch me in this video. I want to see if you guys can catch it. Ready? I'm going to play this. It's a 2-minute video. Check it out. So props to Another Frog for making that epic video. That was just an incredible video, dude. So thanks for making that. If you guys missed me in there, I'm on the frog raft with by the way, how did Another Frog know I love coconut juice? Like, how did he know that? I don't know. Maybe it was AI. Maybe he knew. I don't know. I'm a big fan of coconut juice. And there I am on the frog raft with my frog shirt and my 17 hat. So very cool. Another Frog. Totally dug that. And what else we got? I think that's really it. So sorry about the audio tonight, guys. I'll make sure I kind of work on that in the future. Thanks for hanging in there with us through the rough fiat price of Bitcoin at an entire, 82,000 or something? Don't worry, guys. We're here. GMoney's here. We'll hold your hand. We'll tell you everything's okay. Don't panic. Don't let the boomer gold bugs get in your face. Okay. Clap back at them, telling them they have no ability to say no or project any power through cyberspace. And eventually they're going to get wrecked. Okay. There's the thing I'm going to end this with Andrew Tate. I know you guys don't like him. I don't particularly like the guy, but he is so on signal with this last part. I'm going to play it anyway, because I always believe in the message over the messenger. And if they've got a good message, like, I want to hear it, and it provides a different perspective. So, yeah, I guess I'll wrap up January, and we'll catch you guys next week. Shade away.
I understand why the ruling elites treat us like they do. And it's truthfully because people are shit. Like, an individual person is okay. We know individuals who are good, but en masse, people fucking suck, bro. And as you climb the ladder and get more and more attention from people, you see more and more how sucky they are. And then you get to a point where it's like, well, I'll just look after myself then. You know who I think must think this the most, even more than me? Two people. Firstly, Trump. He's trying to save America. He's not a perfect person, but he's trying to save America. And everyone's just fucking calling him names, insulting him, wishing he was dead, laughing at him getting shot. Judges are preventing his orders going through. Like, he's trying to save the country you live in. And people are insulting him. Imagine how demotivating that is, to sit there and go, what the fuck am I even trying for these? I'm trying to save America and Americans, and most Americans are fucking retards. I could have just stayed rich and not bothered. And who else gets it and must really dislike people is Elon. He bought Twitter so that we could talk, and now everyone just insults him on his own platform. You're a fucking sellout to the fucking Jews. Fuck you, Elon. And even if I disagree with some things Elon said, and Elon and I aren't close. Like, Elon doesn't retweet me. He doesn't like my posts. Elon doesn't talk to me. But I have enough respect for Elon that he gave me Twitter, that even if he said something I disagree with, no matter what it is, I'm not going to sit there. Even if I may at most respectfully disagree. Maybe I was raised in a different generation where you show respect to people who do nice things for you. Maybe I'm crazy. But I'm not going to sit there and go, you fuck you, Elon, you fucking fuck you. And I see people talking to Elon this way, and I'm like, he must hate everyone.
He bought an entire company.
To let us talk.
To win an election as well.
And everyone's a dickhead. And you probably get it too. You make the podcast, and it's like, oh, that was shit. That was a sellout. Oh, your politics used to be good. Blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, what the fuck? And then you wonder why the people at the top go, you know what we should do? We should just lock them all in their houses and make them wear masks so they can't talk anymore. How about we just take all their freedom away? Because they fucking suck. I should fly to Davos on my jet and just say, guys, you were right. Guys, I'm sorry. I tried to free the slaves. My stupid ass got rich and walked into the slave compound and looked at all the slaves locked in their cell and said to the slave owners, dude, guys, you can't. This is inhumane. Don't do this. Let me go tell the slaves how to escape. Guys, if I tell you how to get out the cage, they're going to kill me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you where the key is. You're a sellout. I'm not a sellout. I'm not inside the cage with you. I'm the only one over here trying to help you get out. I'm telling you where the key is. You're a fucking sellout, fucking Jew. Guys, you were right. You're right. Just keep them in the fucking cage then. Just keep them there. They're fucking retards. I totally get it. I should go have some wine and a nice scrumptious dinner with the other world leaders. I should go to Davos and say, hi, Klaus. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Don't escape the Matrix. Let them stay in it. I'm out. Leave them there. People fucking blow, bro.
Nailed it, Andrew Tate. Freaking like Trump and Elon are literally trying to tell you guys, yo, the key's over there. Go get it and unlock yourselves. And everybody's just hating. But anyways, I had to chime back in on that because I think Andrew absolutely nailed it. So anyways, get away.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.
Delay, my friends.
Because you're living an illusion. I can't wait till it hits you. Recollection, your misconception. Obsessed, you say the green is successful. Material gain causes serious stress. More love, because you're living an illusion. Wake up now, yes, you're living in confusion. You're not a scholar, you're a waste of a teacher. Preach the dollars, you're a waste of a preacher. Love, come on, that's what we need. More love, that's what we need to succeed. Not dollars, not what we need. Let's give them love so the youth can achieve. More love, come on, that's what we need. More love, that's what we need to succeed. Not dollars, not what we need. Let's give them love so the youth can achieve now. Yep, you gotta see clearer. Clear on up, stay up and stay clear of. Go back to basics, look in the mirror. You're in a dream, wake up and now gear up. Come on, love, continually loving, that's realer. Make up your mind and emerge as a leader. Now it connects many all feed off. Rise up above, cause the youth stay feed off. Love, come on, that's what we need. More love, that's what we need to succeed. Not dollars, not what we need. Let's give them love so the youth can achieve. More love, come on, that's what we need. More love, that's what we need to succeed. Not dollars, not what we need. Let's give them love so the youth can achieve now. You gotta see clearer. Yep, you gotta see clearer. More love, come on, that's what we need. More love, that's what we need to succeed. Not dollars, not what we need. Let's give them love so the youth can achieve now.